everybody, this is Ogre Boy, and I'm going to be doing my top 10 favorite movies of 2019. But before I do that, I'd like to show my honorable mentions, and instead of just naming them off, because there's like 20 or 30 honorable mentions on here, I'm just going to do like a little slideshow with the posters of the movies. And they're not like meant to be in any particular order, they're just movies that I really liked a lot that I just couldn't fit onto this list and everything. So here are the honorable mentions. So those are my honorable mentions, and I think I forgot to put the new Child's Play movie on there with that came out during the summer, the Child's Play remake. I'd like to give a shout out to that movie too. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on my top 10. This was a really good year for movies. That's why I had so many honorable mentions, because I had a tough time narrowing down just 10 movies for this list and debating which ones to put in my top 10. But I went over the ones that haven't really left my head, or ones that I've rewatched a few times and everything that I really like a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. My number 10 movie of 2019 is Us. Jordan Peele did a really good job with this movie and everything. This was his second movie and his big follow-up to Get Out. And I know most people say that it was a big step down from Get Out, but I personally really enjoyed this movie. And I really loved the twist at the end of the movie. I didn't see it coming. I know a lot of people did, but I didn't see it coming from a mile. And Lupita Nyong'o gives such a great performance in this movie. It's one of the best performances of the year to me. And she was just absolutely amazing. The rest of the cast is really good in here too, though. And I thought this was just a really fun horror movie. It has a little bit of humor and stuff in it, but not too much to really derive it from to make it like a horror comedy. And Jordan Peele's directing is just really great. Now I love the cinematography in here, and there's some pretty cool, brutal, violent scenes in here and everything. And it's just a really good movie. So Us is number 10, and number 9 is Spider-Man Far From Home. This one I was not really extremely excited about, and I don't know why, because I love Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought it was a good movie, and I love the MCU version of Spider-Man, so I don't know why I wasn't as excited for this. Maybe it's because Endgame really felt like a good ending to the MCU and stuff, and I wasn't quite ready to return to the MCU and everything, and I knew I was going to get emotional because Spider-Man being so connected to Tony Stark and everything, and with what happened to Tony Stark in Endgame, just kind of, I felt like the movie was going to be too depressing, but it actually ended up being really fun, and everything. It does have its emotional moments and stuff, which I think is good, because most Spider-Man movies do have the emotional moments and everything, and this one was just a really, really good sequel. To me, it was a lot better than Homecoming. Spider-Man Far From Home was just a really, really good movie. I loved Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. I think that he's easily the best Spider-Man villain we've had in a long time, probably since Doc Ock, although Vulture was really great too, so I don't know why I'm saying that he's the best in a long time, because Vulture was almost just as good. But I really love this, and I love the relationship between Peter and MJ, and then that big shocking twist that comes in during the end credits. I'm not gonna really talk about what it is in case you haven't seen it, because I don't want it to be ruined for you and everything, but there's a really cool thing that happens in this movie, and that ending, it just makes you can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And the third Spider-Man movie's not out for another year and a half and everything, but I can't wait to see what they do next with Spidey and the MCU. So Spider-Man Far From Home is number 9, and number 8 is The Fanatic. I think this movie is really underrated, and it gets hated on and stuff a lot, and I don't think it's really fair. John Travolta, I think it's great in this movie, but then again, it may be just because I'm like a really huge John Travolta fan. I kind of have a bias towards him and everything, so I really loved his performance in this movie, and I've seen every single movie he's been in, and I've got to say this was his best performance in a really long time. And it really reminded me why I was a fan of him and everything. Yeah, he might be a little bit over the top in the movie, but I still found the movie just really enjoyable. I didn't find it as humorous as a lot of people did. A lot of people said it was like so bad it's good and everything, but I just found it as an enjoyable movie with a great performance by him. And I love like the dark, twisted ending. Like, I did not see that ending coming at all and everything. It totally subverted my expectations, and I think that's what I liked about it, was because I mean, I figured it was going to follow the typical Stalker movie formula and everything, and it does follow it to an extent, but that ending, though, was just, blew me away. I was so surprised by the ending of this movie. So, The Fanatic is number 8, and number 7 is Shazam. This is one that, when it first came out and everything, I didn't really know what to expect. I know the trailers looked really good and everything, but I didn't really know much about the character and everything. I knew a little bit like from animated series and stuff, but I didn't expect that I would like Shazam as much as I did. In fact, it's been in my top 5 for most of this year since it came out. We just recently dropped down to number 7 after a couple of the other new movies that have came out since then. But it's a really, really great movie. Zachary Levi is great as Shazam, and the kid that plays Billy Batson is really, really good too. And all the other cast members are great. Mark Strong was a really good villain. I don't think that he's like the best villain we've had in the DCEU, but I think he was still pretty good, and I love like how it kind of has horror elements put into the movie and everything. Like, there's parts where it's really lighthearted, and then there's parts where it can be pretty dark and everything. I really like that about it, though, and I love that it's set during Christmas time, so we got a really good Christmas superhero movie. Everything, which I also think is kind of weird. They've released Aquaman during Christmas time, and they could have easily released this one at Christmas time instead. But I just absolutely love Shazam. It's easily one of my favorite movies of the year, and it's probably my favorite DCEU movie so far. So Shazam is number 7, and number 6 is Frozen 2. I never expected that Frozen 2 would be as good as it was. I know how Disney is with sequels. And they've had some decent sequels, but after seeing Ralph Breaks the Internet and being really disappointed in that last year, This movie, I went in with really low expectations, not expecting to like it near as much as the first movie, and I was really shocked at how good this movie was. The filmmakers did a really good job taking their time getting the story done very well, and I do like it a lot more than the first, or actually not more than the first, but about as much as the first, and it has really good songs. And when I very first saw the movie, I didn't think the songs were going to be as catchy or memorable, but I've listened to the songs on YouTube and stuff a lot since I saw the movie, and to me they're just as good as the first one and everything. I like the more mature tone, like it tried to grow up with its audience a little bit. I like that about it too, and I think that the Frozen 2 is a really good movie, really underrated, well, not really underrated, because I mean it's making a ton of money and it did pretty decent with critics, but I don't think that it's as bad as some people. I know there are some people that didn't like it, and I think that that's also because of hype too. I didn't let myself get too hyped up for this movie. I think that's why it surprised me as much as it did. But yeah, so Frozen 2 is number 6, and number 5 is The Peanut Butter Falcon. This was one of those movies that I had only heard just a little bit of word of mouth that the movie was really good, and that if you're a movie fan you should see it and stuff like that. But I didn't really know anything about the movie going into it, except that Shia LaBeouf was in it. And I'm a pretty big fan of, or I used to be a pretty big fan of him. I actually haven't kept up with his stuff since he left Transformers, but I used to like him a lot as a teenager, back when I was really into like even Stevens and the Transformers movies and everything. So, and I loved him in Indiana Jones and Disturbia. So back then I used to be a big fan of him, but I hadn't really kept up with his career since then, because he's done like a bunch of indie movies that I've had trouble getting access to and everything. I was like, I guess I'll go ahead and give this movie a shot, and it's easily one of the best movies of the year for me. I absolutely love this movie. I love the main character, Zach, the way the writers and stuff wrote this movie specifically for this actor and everything. I absolutely love that. Like, the whole movie was written around just to be, so he could be in it and everything, and it's just a really heartwarming movie. And you can't help but smile when you watch this movie. It just is the definition of a feel-good movie. If you look up feel-good movie in the dictionary, this movie should be under there, because this is a really great feel-good movie, one of the best movies of the year. And if you haven't seen it, I can't stress enough how much I would recommend this movie, because it's just such a great movie. So The Peanut Butter Falcon is number 5, and number 4 is Joker. I absolutely love this movie too. Anybody who knows me knows that the Joker is like my favorite villain of all time. Like, not just movie villain, just villain in general. I've always loved him and everything. I love every version we've gotten of him for the most part. Yeah, I even like Jared Leto. I mean, we didn't get enough of him for me to really complain too much about him. Like, I know a lot of people did complain about him and everything, and at first I was disappointed because he wasn't in it in Suicide Squad very much, but I'm not on the Jared Leto hate train anymore. I'm like, you know, it is what it is. You know, he did decent enough. We just never got to see his full performance because they cut most of his scenes and everything. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, when I heard Joaquin Phoenix was going to be playing the Joker, I knew that this movie was going to be really good, and it was even better than I expected. I had really high expectations, because Joaquin Phoenix is one of my favorite actors around nowadays. So, everything I've seen him in recently, You Were Never Really Here, The Master, Her, he's had a really great decade and everything. It's really kind of been the peak of his career this decade. And the Joker just was another extremely amazing performance, and great casting. And I think Todd Phillips' directing was great too, and the cinematography and score were great. And I think this is a really good movie, and it's one that I really am hoping to see get an Oscar nomination. I don't watch the Oscars as much anymore because most of the time the stuff I really like either don't win or it gets too political and stuff in the speeches. But if Joaquin Phoenix gets a nomination for the Joker, I definitely will be watching to see if he wins, because his performance was amazing in this movie and everything. It's easily one of the best movies of the year. So Joker is number 4, and number 3 is Avengers Endgame. I know most people would have this movie up way, way higher. Some might even have it as the top spot. And I can completely understand why. This was a really, really great movie that lived up to every bit of hype that I had for it. When I went to see this movie, I was super hyped for it. And I try to keep myself from being as hyped as I was, but it still lived up to everything that I had hoped it would be. Yeah, maybe there's not as much action and stuff, but I just love these characters so much. You could have had them just sitting in the room talking for most of the movie, which I mean, that is kind of what they do throughout the first hour of the movie, is they're like talking about how much they miss people or stuff or how to change things and stuff. Yeah, I really still loved it though. Just getting to see these characters all hanging out and stuff is just a blast for me and everything. And then the time travel stuff I thought was a lot of fun and everything. And then you get to the third act with all of the heroes coming back, and the portal sequence is one of the best scenes in a superhero movie. And then the big battle was great, and everything. Having to see Iron Man die though, that was the one part I don't really care about in the movie, because Iron Man's like my favorite MCU character, so it's really hard to watch him die and everything, because I've grown so attached to him over the last 11 years and everything. But Robert Downey Jr.'s performance was amazing and everything, and that scene that was just heartbreaking after he snaps his fingers and everything. I love the deleted scene where he's like in the soul world or whatever it is, and he's talking to the older version of Morgan Stark. I thought that scene should have been left in the movie. I think it would have been really cool if it was, but yeah, I absolutely love Avengers Endgame. It's easily one of the best movies of the year. I saw it 3 times in the theaters, which is something I don't do very often anymore. I usually go to a movie 1 time, and that's usually it nowadays. Every once in a while I might see something twice, but this was one of those exceptions. I would have probably seen it more if I would have been able to. I just absolutely love Endgame. It's such a great movie and everything. So it's number 3. And number 2 is Toy Story 4. Now this is the first time for me, because 1995, 1999, and 2010, my favorite movies from each of those years were the first 3 Toy Stories and everything. This is the first year that a Toy Story movie doesn't make the very top of my list, and I'll talk about the reason why when I get to the next one. But I absolutely love Toy Story 4. It was a really, really good movie. I know a lot of people were worried that it was going to suck or something, because it took there was production problems, and most people felt Toy Story 3 was a perfect ending, which at the time Toy Story 3 came out, if they would have said they were doing a 4th one, I probably wouldn't have been as excited, because I didn't really see where they needed to go and everything. But as time went by, I was like, I really love these characters, so why am I thinking that if they make a Toy Story 4, why would it be that bad of a deal for me? Because, I mean, get to spend more time with characters that I've loved ever since I was a kid and everything. And I feel Toy Story 4 was an amazing sequel. It's actually probably my favorite movie in the Toy Story franchise and everything. I absolutely loved it. It just the Woody story arc is just really great, and it felt like a really good conclusion. I really don't see them making a Toy Story 5, and if they do, I mean, I guess I'd be willing to see it if they do make one. I see everything Pixar does, and I don't think they would make another one if they didn't have a good story to tell. And that's what I kept telling myself when I found out about Toy Story 4, is they must really have a good story or they wouldn't be making it and everything. And I absolutely love this movie. I think it was a really, really great movie and everything, and easily one of the best movies of the year, and barely is number 2. Just like by a tiny smidge and everything. I never expected that Toy Story 4 would drop down to number 2 because of how much I liked it and everything. I didn't expect to like it more than Toy Story 3 because Toy Story 3 was such a great movie and everything, but Toy Story is one of those rare franchises where I feel every single one of them gets better as they go on and everything. And they did a really great job, and the animation in this is absolutely mind-blowing. Some of the, like, the realistic looking cat and stuff, is just like amazing how far animation has come. If you go back and watch the first Toy Story and then watch this one, it's like really amazing how far animation has come since then and everything. But Toy Story 4 is number 2, and number 1 is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. If there's any movies that would be able to top a Toy Story movie, it would have to be Star Wars, because or if like maybe one of the Harry Potters came out this year, but I absolutely love The Rise of Skywalker. It was so good. A very perfect ending to the Skywalker saga, at least for right now. Probably 20 years from now, they'll probably end up doing a fourth trilogy or something, who knows. But whether they do or not, if they do, it's going to take a lot to be able to beat this one. This was a really, really good fitting end to the trilogy. I think J.J. Abrams did a great job with that. I love the stuff they did with Princess Leia and everything. They ended her story really well and everything, and I was really impressed with how much footage they had of her to be in this movie, because I figured their footage would be really, really limited, and she probably was going to be maybe in 1 or 2 scenes, and that would be it. But she was in the movie a lot more than I expected she was going to be. I thought that was really cool too. And I think Daisy Ridley as Rey was even better in this movie, and I think this was her best performance as Rey. Her acting has gotten a lot better since The Force Awakens, and I don't think she was absolutely terrible or anything. It's just her acting is just a lot better now than it was in the first 2 movies of this trilogy and everything. Yeah, it does kind of wipe away some of the stuff from The Last Jedi, and I know that's a big turnoff for some people, and I was one of those people that absolutely love The Last Jedi, but I still kind of find it humorous, some of the stuff they do in here, like some of the jabs they do at The Last Jedi, especially with Luke and everything. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil this movie, but it is a really, really great movie, and if you're a fan of Star Wars, you definitely should see this one if you haven't yet. It's definitely worth seeing and everything, and I loved how they brought the Emperor back and everything, and I liked the way it's written. It doesn't make Vader's death pointless and stuff. They did a good job writing him back into the series without totally crapping on the ending of Return of the Jedi and everything, and this was just a really, really good movie. So Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is number 1. Easily one of my favorite movies of the year and of the decade. But let me know in the comments what your favorite movie of this year is. I know there are a lot that I missed out on. There's still some that I haven't seen yet, like Uncut Gems. I really want to see that one, and want to see Queen and Slim and Knives Out. I just haven't had a chance to get to see those yet and everything, but I doubt they will crack my top 10. The only one that might is maybe Uncut Gems, but I doubt that they'll crack my top 10. But I love these movies. Every single one of the movies on this list was hard to even place, because some of them, especially the top 2, I had a really big hard time trying to decide which one I wanted to put at number 1 between Star Wars and Toy Story 4 This has been a very good year for movies. There has been some stinkers, but not very many, not near as many as there has been in the last few years. Personally, I think that most of the ones that I didn't really like were more meh than absolute garbage. There was only maybe 1 or 2 movies that I thought were completely garbage and everything. But yeah, so let me know in the comments what your favorite movie of this year is, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.
This is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend.
That's enough, guys.
Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the song that doesn't end.
How do I turn you off?